Hello, hello. This is Christina Barrow, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about some footage from the January 6th tapes that were given to Tucker Carlson, and he's reported on some events, and some people are like, "Oh, we didn't learn anything, we didn't know," but there's some things that I think are pretty interesting that we didn't have access to. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that today. Also, Bernie Sanders was on Bill Maher's show, and so they talked a bit about student loans, and I saw a bit of that. But my sister today was like, "Did you see the when they were talking about equity?" And he did not know what that was. So I had to look that up. So now we have to talk about it because it's amazing, especially because Cenk from the Young Turks jumped in and defended Sanders on Twitter and said that only like 12 leftists and the right know what equity is, and really downplayed how explosive it is right now. It is a mainstream idea on the left. Like maybe some older people or whatever don't know what it is, but it is like literally in the Democrat Party platform. So we will talk about that today. You cannot downplay, I guess you can try to downplay the role of equity in our political landscape right now, but it's definitely something that's not just a handful of leftists pushing. So those are their two main stories of the day. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. Tonight I will be dropping my thoughts about Matt Walsh, and I guess this happened about 2 weeks ago. He did a video about Dylan Mulvaney, who has been in the culture atmosphere a lot with conversations. At first he popped on, I guess, my radar because Ulta did a video with him, a podcast, and he's a man. He was talking about how he can be a mom one day, and people are like, what the heck? And then he ended up going to the White House and got to, with Now This, and got to interview Joe Biden, and he has a following on Twitter, I'm sorry, on TikTok of 10 million plus followers. So um it's not that people want to talk about him, but it's like people put out bad ideas and you have to talk about it because it is so entrenched in culture. And there's these major institutions that are really trying to push these people to the forefront for whatever reason. So if we don't come out and just criticize some of this stuff, you will just see it continuously just spread. So Matt Walsh was very I will say harsh. I think harsh is accurate, but was it uncalled for? I don't think so. So I run through his video, and actually like section by section, and that'll be out tonight. So make sure that you are hitting your notification bells. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. So if you're watching from Facebook, yes, it'll probably like, oh, I gotta go to YouTube. It's already uploaded on YouTube. I just gotta premiere it. So it's gonna take too long at this point to put it on Facebook now. So go ahead and watch it tonight on YouTube. So that'll be out at like 7 tonight. So you can watch it when it premieres or watch it back later or whatever. But I had a lot of thoughts about it, and there's a big reaction to it. Some people on the right thought it was too far, um and people were mad at Matt Walsh, but he's like, but you guys aren't saying what was wrong about it. So I give my thoughts, my 2 cents on it. You guys can check out different articles that I have on my website. I have an article already that I just dropped about the Bernie Sanders situations, but we are going to talk about it today. And you guys can check out other articles that I have. Like I wrote one about Bryan Cranston saying that "Make America Great Again" can be construed as racist, which I think is really silly, but you guys can go read the article and share the article around. Got articles on a lot of pro-life topics, and the transgenderism stuff. So just go check out what I have on my website. Make sure that you guys are signing up for updates. Please go ahead and check out different merchandise that we have at the store. Got some people follow me from Canada. You got the cool merch there that I made when they had the movement with the truckers. So go ahead and get some free Canada stuff. We got the Roe and Casey aborted. We got this XX Club lifetime membership for the ladies out there. So go ahead and check out merch at the store. We got the You Are Not That Special mugs, also like black tea mugs and other stuff like that. So check out the merch on the store. It does help support the show. And if you can donate to Black Tea News, you can go to blackteenews.com/donate. It costs to stream, costs to run my website. It costs to use different software for when I make fancier kind of videos and stuff. There's a cost obviously associated with everything. And if you can support, I very much appreciate it. Appreciate everyone who has given. But yes, you have not because you asked not. So I'm asking if you can to go ahead and support, whether it's a small gift of just like $10, that helps. If it's especially if a lot of you do it, but if you can give larger, I appreciate it. I thank you to everyone who's watching now, everyone who watches back later. Very much does help. It really, really does. Getting my watch hours up and all that stuff. I can break it down further like later why it really does help, but it does help. So I do appreciate you guys watching and tagging other people, and you're commenting, that helps boost. I know I don't always react to the comments when I'm going through different stories. I'm trying to keep my place. I don't have a team behind me or someone in my ear, so I'm trying to keep everything in an orderly sort of fashion, so I don't always reply to everything as it comes in, but I do see your comments and I do appreciate you guys. Okay, sorry. Yeah, when I hit the mic, I think I lost my connection, but I got it now again. Sorry. So my meme of the day is from Right to Bear memes, and I usually use them, but they had a couple. So I'm just gonna share the screen on Twitter and just scroll through them because there was like three of them that I really liked that were really funny that are relative. Of course, there's a lot of memes regarding the Tucker tapes. So let's look at a few. So that's their header right now. If you guys don't follow this page is pretty funny. Um so January 6 footage raises eyebrows. So you got, Tucker and Nancy, they're both raising their brows. And I don't think they made this one, but you had Tucker with the tape and Kinzinger there, which a lot of people are calling him out today um, for his role on the January 6th committee, him and Cheney, and how they conducted themselves and information that they didn't release or chose not to release, though they had the footage available. So I thought that was a good meme, especially if you're unaware. I don't know how you can be unaware of the Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, which, by the way, Chris Rock did just come out with a special where he talked about the situation in Will Smith. I just saw. I haven't watched the whole thing. I just watched a section of him going off a lot on Will Smith. I don't even. Was it so much of a comedy show or him just like relieving his stress after like a year and getting some stuff off of his chest and having a funny tone to it. It just, but he expressed himself. So that's big news. So I thought the timing of this meme, though a lot of people have used this meme over and over again, Will Smith, it's good timing. So that's a good meme there. So that's a good one. And there's another one that, yeah, there we go. Tucker with the laughing Leonardo DiCaprio face, but instead of, his face was appropriate for the laugh anyway. So I think that's, oh, there we got another one, Tucker and some tapes. So a lot of good memes, I'm sure, going around with this. And so I was scrolling through and I'm like, I don't want to copy and paste and put them all in a document. So um, I just thought I would screen share and scroll a little bit and share the ones that I thought were kind of funny. So speaking of January 6th, um, there was a lot of footage that Tucker came out with last night and decided to share with the people. And there were three main things that I wanted to share. Maybe that was all they had, but this is all that I really saw. So a big well, let's start with Ray Epps. Ray Epps was the guy who clearly was telling people to go into the Capitol. And at one point, people were like, that's a Fed, and start yelling Fed. And so people have been suspicious of this guy. And so much to the point where they did eventually call him in to like testify because other people got arrested, for just merely being there or whatever and investigated. And it didn't seem like that was really happening to this guy. So he seemed like he was an informant, and that was a suspicion. And so he did testify. And so now Tucker has looked through the tapes and they're like, he was not honest about when he gave his testimony. So let's watch this section and we will go from there.
The enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law enforcement agencies play. One of the enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law enforcement agencies play.
I'm not sure why I'm not hearing it. So let me go ahead and share my screen from Twitter because I'm not sure why that's not. Okay. Okay. So this is the Ray Epps story.
One of the enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law.
Not sure. I don't think you guys can hear. Testing. Sorry, it's not playing for me, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear. I can't hear the audio for some reason.
Okay. One of the enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law enforcement agencies played in the events of that.
Can you hear the audio?
We know there was some number of undercover federal agents in the crowd at the Capitol. Officials have since admitted that under oath. But what exactly were they doing there? The January 6th committee worked hard to hide the answer to that question. We do know from contemporaneous videotape that a mysterious figure called Ray Epps encouraged the crowd to go into the Capitol. For some reason, Epps has never been indicted for that. But there's no question he did it.
We need to go into the Capitol!
Under public pressure, the January 6th committee finally interviewed Ray Epps. Epps told the committee that he never entered the Capitol and therefore never committed a crime. His text messages showed that at 2:12 p.m., he boasted to his nephew that he had, quote, orchestrated the protests at the Capitol. He admitted he helped get people there. Yet, curiously, congressional Democrats consider Ray Epps an ally, not an insurrectionist. Tonight, we can tell you that at the very least, Ray Epps lied in his sworn testimony to the January 6th committee. Epps testified that when he sent the text messages to his nephew, he had already left the Capitol grounds to return to his hotel room. That is not true. The surveillance footage we found shows that, in fact, Ray Epps remained at the Capitol for at least another half an hour. You're seeing that on your screen now. What was Epps doing there? We can't say, but we do know that he lied to investigators. The January 6th committee likely knew this too. Democrats had access to the same tape, yet they defended Ray Epps. No honest investigation would do that.
Yeah, so everyone was very suspicious of Ray Epps, and when you find a text that said I orchestrated it, and there's people who I know people who went there who were rated, like this is no secret, I suppose. Ryan Kelly, he was one of the candidates for governor who ended up losing the primary, but he was there at the Capitol, and they waited some time, like right when he had surged in the polls, to go raid his house, and his kids and stuff were there, and they really came hard after so many different people. Like, we'll play the shaman video, and the shaman, like the Q shaman, or at least that's what he's dubbed as, he got 4 years. And so there's also video of him saying, we want well, here it is right here.
Everybody, listen up. The police here are willing to work with us and cooperate peacefully, like our First Amendment allows. Gather more Americans under the condition that they will come and gather peacefully to discuss what needs to be done to save our country.
Another or the other. You need a show. You understand? To show us no attacking, no assault, remain calm.
We're not going to assault. We're going to be heard. Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This has to be peaceful. We have the right to peacefully assemble.
Everybody, listen up.
So there's a shaman right there. And so here's his report on the shaman. It's pretty nuts.
What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality.
Yeah, so he got 4 years. Now, I don't think and people gonna agree to disagree. I thought it was, I know people who went there. Like I mentioned that somebody I knew who went there, which I didn't meet them until afterwards, but I know people who didn't go to the Capitol who went to like the Trump's rally and stuff, that it always seemed like a not wise move to go. I didn't personally like that Trump was even having a rally that day. If other people wanted to kind of meet and throw something, but he himself doing it wasn't really fond of that. You guys can go back, and I don't think you'll find a maybe YouTube video on it, but my thoughts right after January 6th, I explained my thoughts on it, and I was like, this really got out of hand, and I don't think that Trump should have had the rally, and it just seemed kind of like really poor judgment of people who went there, especially kind of like as maybe a setup situation. But if they gave him like a year or something, that's one thing. They gave him 4 years, knowing, and they keep saying that these people planned an insurrection. And to me, that always seemed like crazy to say that. Like I know there were parts of like actual like riot stuff and people being violent and stuff, and I condemn that stuff. But some people just really legitimately went and walked around and prayed, and I'm like, if these people wanted an insurrection, if there was a planned insurrection, why would not they come armed to the teeth, like prepared to do violence? So people who keep saying it's an insurrection, it's just really, really, really dishonest, in my opinion. An insurrection. Bolton, who said, who told Jake Tapper, he's like, I participated in coups. This wasn't a coup. You know, especially like as implying that Trump led it, you know, or was staging some kind of coup. You know, I've talked to people who, you know, had Stop the Steal stuff, who believe that, you know, the election wasn't, trying to be careful because one thing that YouTube will tag you for is election stuff. I've gone to different rallies and talked to a lot of people who have grievances about the outcome of 2020, and I will tell you that people believed when they went to different rallies and they did the elector stuff, that people believe that they were going within their purview of the law. Like, people can disagree with how they went about things and say that they didn't have a standing, but people did not have a plan at large. I'm not going to say maybe there weren't some people, but at large, people did not have some kind of plan to overthrow the government. Not most people that I know who were like involved. They just didn't. They believe, they like them saying that they're going there to be heard, you know, peacefully. And you could argue that the police officers, the Capitol Police, they were just cooperating because there was a lot of them, like, so doing what they could do to best control the situation was to just kind of let the people have a moment, hear them out, walk them a bit, not like attack the mob of people. And so everyone going down a rabbit hole of, you know, like all this was staged to arrest everybody, like with I can see an argument for that. But as far as them walking the people throughout, it could just be this is the way that they thought this was the best way to control the crowd. But at the same time, people who have been pushing the insurrection sort of propaganda, it was obviously not true. Like, maybe at first when people saw the visuals and there were reports coming out about, you know, officers being killed, which wasn't true, and we'll get to that in a second. I can understand like the feelings that people had and the reaction. And even the folks who were like, we got to impeach Trump, like I don't think that the data was there to do that, so I didn't agree with that. But feelings were high, tension was high, people legitimately thought they were going to be harmed. So as all this kind of first started coming out, but we have people who still to this day will say this was our 9/11. People will say that this is the worst thing since the Civil War, and that's like rhetoric that has come from the White House, and it's just never been true. It's never been true. Anyone who says that, who's looked at these footage and thinks that these people wanted to lead some kind of revolution, like they would have, if I'm not saying if they wanted to actually have one, that it would have been competent or would have went well or been successful. I'm not alleging that at all, but this is just not how you would do it. It's just not how you would do it. So it was just always propaganda, and always propaganda that they wanted to keep continuously using for their own political gain. You know, I did a video some time ago about like different issues that were going on, like, oh my gas prices are high, and then someone be like, yeah, but what about January 6th? And like, oh, my job's going to lay me off if I don't get the vaccine. What am I going to do? I'm allergic or whatever. And then be like, but what about January 6th? Because that was the thing that the Democrats wanted to focus on, to hedge their bets on, etc. So they continued to make it an issue. And this will probably not change that. I mean, there are people who want to get their hands on the footage now to try to debunk Tucker. And I think they should allow footage for other groups to go ahead and look at it. But I mean, how much interest has, first of all, why wasn't this widely released to folks for people to be able to really look through this, before, when the Democrats were in charge? And everybody should want to, if you're a news organization, why wouldn't you want to pour through this stuff? So I think it should be available. I think people who want to look at it now are probably people who just want to look at it not for truth, but just to try to debunk Tucker. So I give it to Tapper and all those other folks. But when the Hunter Biden laptop was out and the New York Post had it, everyone just wanted to debunk that story or discredit that story, and didn't actually want to look at the evidence because they didn't want to know if it was true. They just wanted to have the plausible deniability of saying that it was fake and misinformation. Like, I remember Jack Posobiec continuously kept tweeting at Jake Tapper like, hey, I have a copy. I will give you a copy of the hard drive. You can look at this information yourself. People didn't want to know the truth. They wanted to protect their narrative. So the insurrections talk, it's crazy. It was a riot. The folks who did violence there, shame on them. But some people are basically political prisoners, and there's some people who commit heinous sexual acts of violence who don't get 4 years. And the shaman guy, he's a colorful character, certainly. But was it worthy of him being prosecuted in prison for 4 years for walking around with police and going in, inside the chamber and praying with people? I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's watch this bit about.
First, they told the country that
Swetnick.
Officer Sicknick was murdered.
I mean, not Swetnick, Sicknick. Sorry.
First, they told the country that Officer Sicknick was murdered with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight.
That story came from the New York Times, which is effectively the assignment editor for most of the rest of American media. It was a lie, untrue in any way. But only after that lie had hardened into conventional wisdom did the newspaper bother to retract it.
The New York Times has quietly retracted its story about the death of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick.
The damage had been done. Brian Sicknick, himself a Trump voter, had been transformed without his consent into a political martyr of the left. His memory was shamelessly exploited by the incoming Biden administration. In February of 2021, Sicknick's body lay in state in the Capitol Rotunda, where a parade of unscrupulous politicians made use of it. Here's Joe Biden.
Breaking down the doors, trying to overturn an outcome of election, and killing several police officers in the meantime.
But Brian Sicknick should not be reduced to a prop for the political ambitions of the Democratic Party. He was a human being. The facts of his life matter, including how he died. To this day, media accounts describe Sicknick as someone who was, quote, slain on January 6th. The video we reviewed proves that is a lie. Here is surveillance footage of Sicknick walking in the Capitol after he was supposedly murdered by the mob outside. By all appearances, Sicknick is healthy and vigorous. He's wearing a helmet, so it's hard to imagine he was killed by a head injury. Whatever happened to Brian Sicknick was very obviously not the result of violence he suffered at the entrance to the Capitol. This tape overturns the single most powerful and politically useful lie the Democrats have told us about January 6th.
Yeah. And there was it was maybe about a month or so ago, there was a Democrat talking about officers killed, and Republican was like, I can't remember who's having the exchange, but they're like, You know that's not true, right? Like, what do you try to check them? But yeah, people are still pushing that. Someone in the comments said that there were literally insurrectionists on camera saying we want a revolution, and I'm not making the case that there are thousands of people there. I'm not making the case that none of them wanted that. Um, but I'm saying I know a lot of people who went there because they believed um, that there were, well, they wanted to be heard as far as they believed that the results of 2020 weren't legitimate and that there was a resolution within our actual system to rectify the situation. I would say that's why most people were there. And my opinion, I thought there were so many different stories that were coming out right out the gate of 2020 in the election that I thought looking to some stuff was the right way to go. But eventually when Trump was just like adamantly like, I won, I thought that I'm like, oof. I think there's a better way to handle your grievances. And I think it started shifting. And like if people went there and they were like had a rally of like, oh, we support Trump, we loved him, he was a great president, I think that would have been fine. Having a rally like, nah, I won, let's peacefully march. I didn't think it was a good look, I will say. And it obviously it seemed like a setup to me, and it obviously didn't turn out very well for people. So it wasn't a good discernment moment for all the folks who went there. And I'm not. That doesn't mean that the people who were treated misfairly that they should have been treated misfairly or that they deserve what happened to them. But the way that January 6th has been inflamed by the media and used continuously is not appropriate, especially with the officer's death. Like there's people who still believe that story. So I wonder what else will come out, and if anything else will happen with like Ray Epps. But very interesting stuff from Tucker here, and I do think that other people should have access to the files, and you know, there's obviously going to be a lot of things that aren't newsworthy in them, but maybe there's going to be things that Tucker won't show or whatever. I like, you know, let people just have access to them and go from there, especially since there's so much agenda being driven behind this, and for such a long time. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about Bernie Sanders, who was on Bill Maher. And so he was talking about equity. The subject of equity came up, and Bill Maher asked him to describe it, and he had no idea how to answer that question. So Bill had to help him out there. But I found this really fascinating. So we're going to go ahead and watch that.
This word equity has come into the language in the last few years. And before that, we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality, that like it's the same word. And it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come to think of it, you know, equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people
right
to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
Equality.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Boys, and this word equity is
so I guess that's kind of comforting to hear if I believed it was true. So so the Young Turks Cenk said that only like 12 leftists and people on the right believe in equity or are really pushing it. And he said that he agrees with Bernie Sanders that we should, fight for equality of opportunity rather than equity. And I just thought that was no, maybe he actually feels that way and he's against equity, but to pretend like it's just like a right wing propaganda or something, and only like a handful of progressive, not progressive, he said leftists are pushing it is just not true. So here's an example. Let's watch his video from Kamala Harris. This is a speech that she gave, and someone made a nice little video of it talking about equity.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests, oh, everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting out from the same place. So if we're all getting the same amount, but you started out back there and I started out over here, we can get the same amount, but you're still gonna be that far back behind me. It's about giving people the resources and the support they need so that everyone can be on equal footing and then compete on equal footing. Equitable treatment means we all end up at the same place.
Okay, so she said right there that equity means that we all end up at the same place. Now there's so much just wrong with that in general. Um Everybody can't start out at the same place. People make such diverse choices. There's so many variables that can lead to so many different outcomes. So just because you see some kind of disparate impact or between races or genders or whatever, does not mean that there's some kind of injustice that has been done or something that you necessarily need to correct. But if you, like in the video, in her speech, she said, you supply the resources. Well, here's the thing about the government, though. The government doesn't really have resources. The government, they get their resources from other people. So if it's the tax dollars or something, they get it from they get the money from you. So Kamala Harris and this whole idea that they're pushing, it's about picking winners and losers, really. And you can say it's to create some kind of bit of fairness, but you have to take from someone else to kind of gerrymander the system to get the equal outcome. We could use, like, they're arguing about affirmative action and stuff in the Supreme Court. Well, they're arguing student loans in the Supreme Court. Well, that's another thing we could talk about, but they argued about affirmative action and stuff. And so affirmative action has been, one time I was having a conversation with somebody about affirmative action and why a lot of Asian people don't like it, because it makes them compete against each other. And if they're, they score better for cultural reasons or whatever, and they end up competing against each other. So less of them will probably get in than that deserve to be in, because they're not competing against everyone. They're competing against themselves. And it's, Black people get in with, are more likely to get in with lower test scores or whatever. And so I was explaining it to them, and they're like, well, if it was my child, I know I'd want them to have, that advantage. And I just kind of paused, and I'm like, that's because you're Black. I'm like, it's because you're Black. So other people who aren't getting that benefit, who are at some kind of disadvantage, don't feel the same way. So, that's an example of like picking a winner and loser when you get some kind of involvement there. Or people talk about, you got to create equity with redistributing wealth and stuff. Maybe you can feel like the rich can afford to have their stuff taken and redistributed, but I wouldn't say that's fair. Again, you're picking winners and losers. So a lot of people feel okay with that, but that's not really the government's job. I mean, the government's job is to ensure our inalienable rights. And Kamala Harris doesn't even want to quote that life is one of them. She because she's so pro-choice. So that happened a couple maybe a month or two ago or whatever. If even well, I guess it happened in January. She was giving a speech and was talking about our rights, and she mentioned liberty and pursuit of happiness, but she omitted life because she was talking about abortion and didn't want to remind people that that was an inalienable right that the government is supposed to ensure. So they're not even good at the job that they do. So how are they going to make equal outcomes for people? Think about, like, I'm from a family of 7 siblings. I have 6. There's 6 girls, 1 boy in my family. Same 2 parents. Lived, in the same under the same roof. We not all of us ended up going to all the same schools. But most of us went to the same schools. Between like the span of everybody going to school, I think it was like 3 different districts between the 7 children by the time everyone was done graduating. But now we're all very similar in a lot. We all went to church together. We all like followed in, ministry sort of careers. We were all, right wing. Some of us care about politics a lot more than the others. But for example, let's say academically, we did not all achieve the same sort of academic career, get the same kind of grades. And not because we all have the same sort of coming from the same genetic pool and stuff. And it's not because everybody wasn't smart. Everybody was smart. But we all didn't process information the same way. Some of us, didn't care about school. And if it's a subject like, my brother, he was not interested in just general stuff in school. He was a more creative type. He ended up, going to like Dorsey schools, and he's graduating, for like culinary arts, and he's a really good chef. Makes the best cheesecakes you'll ever eat. So, he excelled in that way. He really liked art, but other subjects didn't interest him. And it's not because he wasn't smart and couldn't pick up the stuff. It just didn't interest him. So he didn't apply himself and as he should have. I was someone who would come home and do my homework on the weekend. And it's not because I did very well. I ended up graduating number 9 in my graduating class. And it's not because I was some kind of super genius. It was just because I was really devoted to getting that good grade. It's what I really, really wanted. And more than like my parents wanted it at one point. Because I went to my oldest sister's graduation, and the valedictorian spoke. And I was like, how come she speak in front of everybody? And they're like, oh, she's a valedictorian. And I'm like, how do you become the valedictorian? And they're like, oh, you have to get straight A's. And I was like, that's all. And so my dad just had a burst of pride and stuff, which I was doing well in school before that. And a lot really had to do with when I was in the maybe 3rd grade, 4th grade. My dad went to a parent teacher conference, and the teacher was just bragging on how well I was doing. And then he's a crier, very masculine guy, but very easily moved to tears. And he started to cry from pride, and the chest was perking up and stuff. And within myself, and I didn't tell him this as a child, but within myself, I was like, I always want to make him feel that feeling. And so I really did strive for excellence in my grades. And then when I was in high school, I had got a B+. And was it 10th grade maybe in math? I think it was algebra 2 or something. And I was so upset. And I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to make it the top 10. My dad was like, it's okay if you don't. And I was like, I felt like he betrayed me. So like you traitor. But anyway, I ended up making it in. I ended up squeezing it in 9. And by the way, when we had our graduation, the top 10, they decided to put in alphabetical order. So except for the valedictorian and salutatorians, which we had 2 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians. So I was like number 5. So people in the row. So people thought I was number 5 and not number 9. So that was cool. But yeah, I was devoted to having those good grades. And then I like went to art school. But so whatever for the math and whatever, but in science. Like that did me. But we all wanted different things. So even though we were all similar, had similar beliefs, same parents, we're still different people, and there's different variables going on with each person to person. So what do you do for personality? Because there's some people who aren't going to work as hard. There's some people who aren't going to work hard in things that they're not interested in. In the parable of the talents, when Jesus is talking about the master who gave the talents to each person according to their own ability, that he gave more to the person who could handle it the most, and then money to the second most capable person, and to the least capable person they gave the least amount, and the person who had the least amount was too afraid to invest it because they thought they were going to screw it up. So then the master rebuked them and gave it to the person who made the most, and started off with the most, because he multiplied and did the best with what he had. So life isn't always about trying to get people at the same point, because we're all so different. So you being at that finish line isn't the same as me being there with you. Like maybe my goals are higher than yours, or maybe you're content being a little further back. So like when you look at something like the wage gap, for example, and that's a big thing that feminists talk about all the time, like, 78 cents or 76 cents or whatever on every dollar, that's what a woman makes. It's like, well, women make different decisions. Women work less hours, they take more vacation, they they pick different careers that will make less money, and that's fine. Like there's a reasonable explanation to explain that gap, and it's not because there's a patriarchy like twiddling their mustache or saying we got to pay the women less, because if they could just get away with that, and that was the reason why, they just wouldn't hire men. They just wouldn't hire men. If they could just pay women less than men to do the same job. So but people will look at that number and see it as such a huge injustice. But it's like, well, what are the variables that get you to that particular outcome? So if a family of everyone having the same values, belief systems, etc., blah blah blah, and everybody's basically smart, but they still can't get everybody to get like straight A's or whatever, what makes you think the government's going to be able to provide some kind of equal opportunity, not equal outcome for everybody at the end? It's just a fool's ambition on their part. But as far as Cenk saying that it's just a thing that 12 leftists care about, obviously not true, because I was the vice president. Also, Joe Biden issued an executive order not too long ago, maybe like when was it? I got it pulled up. It was, I got to zoom in this so I can see it. January 20th. Oh, this was some time ago though. Executive order on advancing racial equity and support for undeserved communities, because this was in 2021. So this has been their whole thing from get-go. Executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. Racial equity. But that's not really a surprise, because in the Democrat Party platform, under the section that says healing the soul of America, very pretentious. That's how Biden ran, by the way. He was like, we got to save the soul of America. I'm like, how's a guy who literally bragged about being from a slave state he said, you're not black if you don't vote for me, gonna heal the soul of America? He just doesn't. He's like, he's not that guy. He's not that guy. So we can go through the platform a little bit and show you that it's got equity right in there. So Chink pretending like this isn't a mainstream Democrat thing is just not true. And I don't know if you guys have ever been like a part of like caucusing and arguing about rules and resolutions. And I've never been to the RNC convention. Um, myself, I've caucused and, did the whole thing when we sent people there, and voted for people to go there. And I've been on, committees to pass resolutions, and I've been a part of like state committee. I just haven't been, to the RNC convention. No, a lot of people who have, but the people who argue about these things, they argue about every line, every sentence, every comma, every just they put so much thought into when they make these platforms. And they're just very intentional about what goes in there. And they take a lot of time, and they'll fight over the smallest detail to get it right. So Shank says that's only 12 leftists. Right there, it says achieving racial justice and equity. Right there in their platform. So Democrats are committed to standing up to racism and bigotry in our laws, in our culture, in our politics, in our society, and recognize that race-neutral policies are not sufficient to rectify race-based disparities. And they said, we will take a comprehensive approach to embed racial justice in every element of our governing agenda, including in jobs and job creation, workforce and economic development, small business, entrepreneurship, eliminating poverty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes environmental justice, voting rights, self-care, criminal justice reform, all that stuff. So now maybe you're like, well, that's a good thing. If you think it's a good thing, that's what you think. That's what you believe. But Cenk made the case that it's just 12 leftists and people on the right who are talking about this. So to reject race neutral policies, that's rejecting like equal opportunity. Like you're black, I'm white, or you're black, I'm black, you're white, or whatever. You have these people at the same kind of starting point. All the laws, regulations, policies, or whatever are exactly the same. And they're like, no, America is too racist. America's been too bad for all this time, this is like CRT that's being integrated or whatever into all this stuff. And so you can't have neutral policies. You have to have something that uplifts this person or uplifts this group and this group and this group. So an example of this happened like right off the bat when Biden was president. There was some kind of was it an executive order, or was it there was some kind of bill or law or executive order, something from Biden about giving money to farmers, particularly farmers of color. And so white farmers couldn't apply or whatever. And one of the farmers that sued Biden had a disability. I don't think he had any legs, any feet. And he sued the Biden administration because this was a discriminatory policy that was excluding them from getting like different loans and funds. So you can say, no, the black farmers, they need this stuff because they don't get enough or whatever. Just know that is you are excluding someone based on their race. And the government is not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to do that. So that was something he did right off the bat. So equal opportunity would have been like, you can apply for this loan. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't get it. But what they were trying to achieve was some kind of racial equity and saying, well, we don't think black farmers get enough help or resources or whatever. So we're going to not allow the white people to participate. We're just going to make this thing, take your taxpayer dollars or whatever, and make sure that this money is available for these black people. So equity is a part of the policies in the Biden administration. It's ingrained. It's in the platform. That's what they were running on. That's what they're supporting and repeat. So I don't know why. I find it hard to believe that Chink doesn't know this. It's a heck of a thing to not know for the Young Turks is not an obscure channel. So they've got to know it's bigger than at least what he was letting on. They got to at least know that. So, yeah, equity, that's what they push. And there are people in the comments, they're like, you're going to get ratioed, bruh. Because people within different industries know that they're pushing equity within the workplace, pushing like, we need more women here. We need, to hire more gay people, or we need, there is that sort of consciousness that's embedded within our system. I guess it has been for a minute, but it's definitely there today. Definitely there today. So Bernie Sanders, I would say that I would think that he really does agree more with Kamala Harris than he's letting on, saying that he thinks he's for equal opportunity. But I would argue that he probably thinks equal opportunity is supplying equity to people so they can be on equal footing. An example, we'll give the student loans, which he did go back and forth with Bill Maher. I didn't want to play it because I thought about maybe going more in depth piece by piece by what he was saying. So I didn't want to just play a snippet because it is a longer segment, not a super long segment. It's like maybe 5 minutes, but I just thought it was merited like a different conversation. But believing that you got to pay off the loans that these people took out, and knowing that it's going to go to some more affluent people. I'm not everyone affluent, but there's going to be people who didn't go to college who are going to have to pay it off. People who already paid off their student loans who are going to have to pay it off. People who are saving to put their kids through college who are going to have to pay it off. And the reasoning why they're like, it's okay is because PPP loans. And it's like, well, they told you that from jump. People knew that as long as you used it for like the paying your employees, that you're going to like get that money back. Like, people knew that up front, right? If you took out a loan for your college, there was supposed to be that agreement that you would pay it back, which we handled everything wrong basically about the pandemic. So it's like, you make people shut down. The government's trying to make assurances, and now they're using those assurances that they use to do other stuff that's not great. So just be aware that the government sucks. The government sucks, and they will not, there's nothing that looks like kindness that they will bestow upon you that they will not use as some kind of club to get you later. So just be aware. Know that you're always making a deal with the devil when you allow them into your life. There are rarely ever good intentions on their end. And then they'll complain about how much money you spend in other kind of places, but the money isn't coming from nowhere. It's not just forgiveness. You can call it that, but it is being paid because you said you would pay the money, and now you're not. So that money is not coming back, but other people will make up that difference. And people who didn't go to college, or people who paid it off, or people who have their own kids to put through college, they're gonna have to pick up that slack. That single mom, that nurse, that teacher who maybe paid off they're paying that off for you. And I will say that Bill Maher mentioned a poll or survey of what people were going to spend it on, and they said vacation and food and just things that weren't school or things that were mandatory and necessary. And he was like, what poll is this? So who's a pollster? And he's like, NBC News. So I remember when that came out, and I think we talked about it on the program. But yeah, I don't buy that Bernie Sanders isn't into equity. I just don't, because I would think his idea of equality of opportunity, equal opportunity is equity. You know, that's what I would think. But Cenk, he ought to know better. And maybe he was just gaslighting everyone because it's very much ingrained in everything. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end the show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different merchandise that we have at the store that you guys can check out. It does help when you guys buy some stuff. So if you're from people were like the Canada, free Canada stuff, I made that during the whole trucker thing. I got the black tea mugs you guys can get. I got the My Money, My Business shirt and other stuff at the website. I do write books as well. Most of my books are fiction. I have one nonfiction book. But if you go to blacktnews.com and hit the merchandise banner, there's a banner with all my books on it, and it'll take you to my book website. But you can just search my name, Christina Elbar, on Amazon, and my stuff will pop out. Will pop up rather, but that's a picture of me in all of my books. I have, children's chapter books, Super Kid 2. I have it on good authority that it's epic. That's what the children tell me. So go ahead and pick that up for your kiddos. I also have my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That's available for pre-order. So you guys can go to blacktnews.com and sign up and get more information, especially if you want a paperback or a hardback version. But you can go ahead and pre-order it on Kindle and also on Nook. So go ahead and check that out. By the way, my youngest sister did the illustration. Usually I do my own book covers. I did after she did the illustration, I did do the rest of it. But she did a great job. She did a fantastic job. But normally I do my own art. So, but it was an honor that I was very glad to bestow upon her because she did an amazing job. She's a great artist. So God bless you guys. And thank you guys for watching, who watched with me live, people who watch it back later. And I am going to air my video tonight at 7 with my thoughts on Matt Walsh and Dylan Mulvaney. Was he too mean? So that's 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you guys can go ahead and look out for that. Make sure that if you are subscribed on YouTube, that you also hit the notification bell so you get notifications. And that if you're on Facebook, that you're following the page. They used to just have likes, but now you follow. They switched it over some time ago. So make sure that you're actually doing both. And I don't know how you hit notify. I think there's a way to notify, but I know Facebook be playing games too. But just look out for me. You guys know that I post stuff basically every day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.